And let me do the ping. Right, so now we have to do the cheesy opening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Villain Viber podcast. My name is Gabriel, and today I have with me... This is the part where you introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. Matty here. How's it going, everyone?
Matty played in the latest season. I mean, maybe not latest at the time that you're listening to this. I don't know. But season 6 of Villain Viber, which in my opinion is like one of the best seasons that we've ever had. Maybe thanks to Matty. I'm just saying. But yeah, so I'm very, very excited to have him here today. And I'm going to be diving a little bit into his game, into the season, and things like that. So yeah, we're excited.
So what you're saying, you're saying you're going to grill me, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, this is an interrogation.
I mean, we're used to it after the season, right? That's kind of the whole premise of it. The interrogation to find out who killed somebody else, right?
You're right. I completely forgot the premise. So to be honest, like I got really busy with work, and so I wasn't able to spectate the season. Like normally I am like balls to the walls, like fucking spending my entire day reading confessionals. Like it's a little ridiculous. But I wasn't able to like do that with this season. So you're going to be filling me into a lot of things that I didn't know about probably tonight, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah, no, there's definitely lots of things that happen. So I'm excited to kind of fill you in and update you on things you might not have been able to see or witness.
Yeah, I mean, what I do know is that there was a steamroll, to put it lightly, and you were kind of in on that, but definitely on the outskirts. You were a little villainous, I'd say.
Definitely I mean, I feel like my halo was supported by my horns, if I'm being completely honest here. Yeah, there was some steamrolling, yes. I think that towards the beginning, when we kind of got I mean, I guess we can't say separated into tribes because I guess I am ultimately the cause of some of that since I was the one that won the first challenge and picked some of that. But the way that was kind of just kind of set up, it didn't, even at that first vote that we had, my inclination was not to vote off two people from the opposing tribe. I wanted to do one-on-one to kind of keep it a little more even there. Obviously I realized early that I did not have control of that. So I kind of had to backpedal a little bit to figure some of that out. But yeah, so at that point in time, the numbers just kind of tipped it at a disadvantage. And it became a kind of a side against side. I think there were some opportunities there that I know I was, for one, willing to look at working with some of the others. It's just the timing of it, I think, was the biggest thing that didn't work out. And, some of the distrust that had been sown, I think, was one of the limiting factors there.
Gotcha. Now, I'll be totally honest. I don't have a set of questions prepared. I'm like freeballing this shit. And I feel like that's just the more authentic way of doing things. So what I will start off with is a pretty vague question. Feel free to go as in-depth or as bare bones as you would like. But just kind of lay out your game for us from start to finish. How did the game go from your perspective?
So it definitely could have gone better if I would have won, but here we are. I mean, I had every intentions of going into this game playing a strong social game because that's kind of what I thrive on, in terms of making those social connections, and typically utilizing those to my advantage. So when the very first challenge that we had and coming into that winning, first of all, I was not expecting to win the first challenge. I will 100% say that, knowing nothing about Danganronpa at the time. Has since then, just disclaimer, I have watched the first season. Um,
Oh.
having no knowledge of what the season was about, I thought that I might have been at a pretty strong disadvantage of kind of going in, and then to have won the first one just by using, I would say logical deduction, um, kind of surprised me. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, this is either going to be really good for my game and kind of set me apart as, being revealed as the oldest castaway. At the time, I'm like, this is either going to be really good for me, and it's going to be really bad for me, and it's going to put a target on my back right away. So having kind of gone that route and kind of working with the Monokuma and kind of feeling everybody out and kind of getting a sense of everyone. My initial inklings were obviously I wanted to work with Abe right off the bat because, as I mentioned in my confessionals, he was the first one that kind of messaged me, and I appreciated that bold approach that he took because, I mean, he was very like, let's work together. We're the oldest people on this cast. Like, makes sense, right? Totally. Like, so he was, I believe, one of my first picks there. And then I ended up choosing Mina, I believe, second. Which I had a really good conversations with Mina. I thought that, considering that she's kind of going into law and doing some studying in regards to that, I thought that, on a personal level, we just kind of were able to understand each other a little bit more, of the struggles of what that looks like. Obviously I didn't go into law, I went into biology. But just kind of being able to have that kind of connection there. So working through that and kind of seeing the tribe dynamics at that point in time, I had some good conversations with Toxic early on. Not a ton with Naren, some a little bit, and not a super large amount with Mariano. And then,
Wait, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. It's pronounced Naran.
Oh, Naran, sorry. Thank you. So, and then just kind of working through some of that a little bit. Sophie was another one that I thought could have been a good ally for me, as well as Rose. Like, I thought Rose, I didn't have a ton of conversations with her, but I thought she could have been a good ally. So the way that things kind of worked out, I might not have secured the allies that I wanted to kind of work with or alongside. But somehow I landed in a large majority alliance, which, typically I'm completely against. I don't, when I watch Big Brother and those kinds of things, like the large alliances just kind of irritate me a little bit. But here I was, a part of one, so I guess I can eat my words on that one a little bit. So kind of just working through that a little bit and having won the first one, and I think we lost the second one because that's where we lost Lucy or Lucian. And knowing that the vote could have gone to myself at that point in time, I believe I did receive a vote for, I think it was from Barney, kind of looking back on things, but not knowing, first of all, who that vote was from kind of really made me kind of second guess some things in terms of who I was talking to, because I didn't have, that was a kind of a shot in the dark, I think, and definitely was something that was used to rattle me a little bit. And I don't know if I showed that, but so just kind of working through that. So we lost Lucy for that first vote that we had to go to tribal council for. And then I believe we split after that. So finding the dynamics there, and just trying to work with Frost and Mariano and Naran through that a little bit, since we were the 401 for Monokuma, and just kind of working through that. And luckily, we were never faced with going to tribal council, the five of us, because we also had Tristan there, and so that was a strong point. To be the only tribe of five that was not able to kind of go to tribal council, it was a good thing, in my opinion. So I kind of had to use the social dynamics there, at least in my eyes at the time, to kind of navigate that a little bit. And in talking, I know that there were some concerns in when Abe and his tribe kind of voted off Sophie, that I had mentioned something about taking Tristan out as a result of that. And just to set the record straight, I did not say that. I said, basically that, if the roles were reversed, I can see us probably doing something similar to that. So I understand why you guys did that. So just that's my disclaimer there.
Thank you for clarifying, because whenever I read that shit, I was like, damn, Matty's a hardcore villain. That's like some bold shit to say when you're on the bottom. Like, I'm sorry, I had to.
Right? No, you're good. And I mean, in hindsight, right? Like, I didn't feel like I was on the bottom at that point in time in the game. But it makes sense, now looking back and seeing the relationships that, Neuron and Frost and Mariano had. And again, just being one of the older players to play and having those individuals be so close in age. I think the exception was Frost. I believe he was 17. Yeah. My memory serves me correct. So having, at least Neuron and Mariano kind of being similar in age, that, that makes a little more sense with that, and me being of a different kind of generation there. But I really liked Tristan, and kind of as I talked to him a little bit more and but my goal, and I told him early on in that merge, was not to isolate or single him out, because I've been in a situation like that, and I know that sucks. To have that swap screw and not have any control over that. So my intentions would have never been to have voted Tristan out there. So I think, I was just really trying to focus on the loyalty aspect in that regards. But then cut to the bloodbath, which sounds terrible. How dare you guys come up with something so cringeworthy?
That is a staple in the org community. For someone like you who's played quite a few, I'm surprised you haven't come across one.
I know. I've never heard something dubbed a bloodbath. So that was intense and kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie. Like, not having knowledge in kind of what that's going to look like. But cut to that was basically, I believe, the token, the monocoin token challenge, which in previous games that I've played in the past, I think I've won that challenge once before. And I definitely was not anticipating winning it this time around. I think it just kind of fate fell into line, and the stars had to align in some perfect formation for that to have happened. My original goal was to not to give the coins to. I think I gave mine to Neuron, Toxic, Mariano, and I think I gave one to Abe. But my original goal was to give more to Abe, to kind of boost him up there a little bit because of his pleading, and I don't want to say whining, but like being against the corner with some of those things, and wanting to show Abe that I was willing to work with him at that point in time. But at that time also, it was important to show Toxic, Neuron, and Mariano that I was willing to work with them too, and kind of have that security of them. So luckily it worked out where, two of them went over from some of those things and had so many coins that it wasn't even funny. And, me and Mariano kind of ended up in the middle of those four. So it worked out perfectly to have all four of us at the top, to what I thought at the time anyway. But then kind of going into that a little bit and having, Mariano, me firstly voicing who I thought I wanted to put in. And then having Mariano kind of say, a couple things that, I think he mentioned Skylar as an option. And I know he was talking about Tristan, and I don't know if he named a third person or not. I think I had suggested a third person because he wasn't. But my top picks were obviously Tanner for reasons of my confessional, just stating, his first message to me was just calling me the old guy. So, right. So that was my one personal kind of move, and it was nothing too crazy. It's not anything that I haven't heard before, but it just gave me a reason to target Tanner, and there's no bad blood between Tanner. Although he did confuse me by speaking in lyric most of the game, so I'll give him that.
It's his aesthetic.
It is. It's his aesthetic. I will give you that. But throwing Tanner in and throwing, I don't even remember who I threw in, Jake and Kat. Just so throwing those three individuals in, like, I knew that I didn't want Jake to go anywhere. Like, him and I had just kind of started talking, and I liked that connection and that vibe that he was giving off. But I also I was kind of against the wall in terms of other individuals that I could put in, with who I thought there wouldn't be any kind of repercussions to to put into that situation. Because I mean, like I said, I wasn't anticipating winning that, so I was 100% expecting to go into that, because you never you not feeling like you're going to go into something like that, like, just makes the season, or any season or any kind of game that you play, it makes you comfortable, and I don't think you can ever be comfortable in a game like Survivor or any other kind of org or reality game that you would play. So kind of going through that, and then having, Mariano kind of switch at the last minute, saying he wanted to throw Nair and Frost and Toxic in, Neuron, Toxic and Frost in, kind of threw me for a loop. And I was like, oh gosh, like, having those connections with the three of them, and having Mariano put them in and them not know about it, I was like, oh god, like, that just seems like a recipe for disaster. And I thought at that point in time, like, if that were to happen, that Mariano would most likely make me take the fall for that. So I wanted to make sure that that was something that he was willing to address with them. And it turns out, like, they were part of the hot babes anyway. So I was the one that still looked like an idiot for that kind of that move there. But regardless of that, having those three go in and having a conversation with the five of us at that point in time, or four of us, because I don't believe Toxic was in that alliance that we were kind of talking in, and having all agreed on Kat going home, and then having it turn out to be Jake that way, after I had messaged him right before you guys had said that we weren't allowed to talk to anybody in the bloodbath. I looked like a total jackass, telling him that he wasn't the target, and then it just made me feel terrible for that, because legitimately, like, he wasn't the target that I had in mind. My target for that vote was Kat, just because of not being able to have any kind of conversations with them, and just kind of working it through that way. So when they all came back and Jake was the one that had left, I had to put on a huge poker face, because I was first and foremost just pissed off that the plan did not follow through as what they had all agreed upon. So I had to work through that a little bit and make sure that I had a good game face on, and didn't let that show, because I couldn't let that affect any relationship there. And I think that I deceived individuals fairly well for that, at least for that portion of it, to kind of move on. From there, I mean, the Cat vote was, I think, pretty simple. I don't think anybody wanted to kind of cause any waves. So my biggest thing was just to kind of play both sides. Like, I knew I was going to go into it playing both sides a little bit. Well, however that looked, I didn't know what the sides were going to be at that point in time. But I try my best to play somewhere in the middle, because I don't want individuals, targeting me early on. And I try to use the social skills that I have, to build connections and find common interests, which I did with Frost and talking about Dead by Daylight a ton. You kind of saw some of the references that we had for each other, I believe. Some of the things that we kind of exchanged back and forth and assigned to each other. And then just connecting with Naran and Mariano about different things, and even Barney, trying to find those common interests, to kind of build a foundational kind of relationship and trust there. And then from the Cat vote, I believe it was the Skylar vote there, which I did want to work with Skylar. Her and I had, or them and I had kind of talked a little bit, just about some of their org experiences, and found out that they were actually in one of the games that I host or helped host in Secret Survivor, for a couple seasons. So I wanted to kind of get to know them a little bit better, because I wasn't an active host for the season that they had played in. So I was interested in getting to know them a little bit more. But with the Abe paranoia that ensued, gosh, he was a chaos. You called me a chaos king. That man was a chaos king. He was so paranoid at everything, and it was kind of hard to muster sometimes. He was just off the rails with that.
Trust me, we know.
I know, it was just crazy. Oh gosh, yes, like, he was just so and I respect Abe. So like, don't take anything that I'm saying in a negative manner. I respect Abe because he did have a good grasp on the game. His video, while I totally played that off as like being irritated and irate, like he was spot on with his video there in terms of what was going on. So I know he had a good handle on the game. I just wish that he would have for the Mariano vote. And with I want to say Tanner was the one that flipped for that one, which made me kind of vote alongside the my core alliance there. Because if Tanner had not have if I not had heard that Tanner had voted for me, Mariano would have gone home that night. Because that was what I wanted to do. I thought that from my perspective, Mariano was also a very social player. So him and I were kind of playing a similar game in my eyes, where, and again, in my eyes, because I realize now that that's not completely true. I'm living in my false delusional state. So, but
I don't mean to interrupt. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
I want to make sure that I have the timeline right.
Yeah.
Is this the vote where this is kind of like the first time you considered flipping on the Monokumas, correct? And then
yes, that's correct.
But then this I will never get over this. The Usamis snitched on you.
Oh yes, okay, I forgot about that.
Because they then went on to complain about the steamroll, and I know Jake's listening. They went on when Jake wasn't part of this, but like they went on to complain about the pagonging the entire season when they fucked it up in this moment.
It's so true. It's so true. Yes. For that was the vote that I had the extra vote. And the only person, and I meant that when I said that, the only person I mentioned that to was Abe. And Abe then went and told Skylar, and that information got back to Mariano, and Mariano told me. So I knew that I could not trust Abe at that point in time. Because anything that I told him, I was getting information from that he was sharing with other people back to me. So I had to lie and downplay that I had that extra vote. To make sure that at that point in time, they thought that Abe had, I believe that was the time that they thought Abe had the idol, which is when we, because that was the double vote. The first double vote I played was for Skylar twice. So yes, had they not done that, then it would have been a very different outcome for the season. So yes, that was 100% accurate for that. And then we lost, and then Abe, I think, was right after Skylar. And that was, everybody saw that one coming, I think. I think that was the one that most people agreed on, even on Usami. They might not have liked it, but I think that everybody kind of agreed that Abe was a loose cannon at that point and not the best person to have as an ally, just knowing some of those things. And then let's see. I'm kind of going through the list that we have here. So after Abe was the toxic. So that was the revote that we had. My strategy going into that was I 100% have never gone to Rocks, and I never intend to go to Rocks.
But it's an org bucket list.
It might be, but the odds, in the words of Hunger Games, right? The odds are just never in. I feel like they're never stacked in your favor. Like the percentage to draw the incorrect rock is too higher, especially in for my thoughts in terms of where I thought I was positioned in the game. To make that risk for somebody that everyone thought was going to win the game anyway. So I couldn't make the justification to go to Rocks for Toxic when everybody thought he was going to win anyway. Like, this just seemed like the perfect opportunity to get rid of a big target and add that to my resume of not being afraid to flip at that point in time and avoid the rock draw. Could it have bitten me in the ass? Yeah, it seems like it might have, especially since that outside of the first time trying to flip on Mariano, that I was the one that kind of took out one of the hot babes there, so that probably sealed my fate to never make it to the end anyway. But I don't regret the decision. I think that for me, I think that was a smart decision to make at that point in time. The Tanner vote, again, I didn't want to vote Tanner there. That came from 100% from Barney. I believe the vote there was a Mariano vote again, I believe. It could have been I don't think it would have been a Tristan vote because I didn't. I mean, I was trying to protect Tristan. Oh no, it was supposed to be Mina. Mina? Frost. One of them.
What was it again? Sorry.
So for the Tanner vote, I can't remember who the original target was.
Oh, Frost. I think.
I think it was Frost. No, it was Mina because Frost and Toxic tied for the revote. And when we kind of went to tribal council, the first thing I had suggested, just because of that's kind of where we had come off from, was Frost. I didn't at that point in time because I was trying to rebuild the relationship with Frost, because I did lie to Frost at the toxic vote, because initially I did vote for Frost and he knew that. So I had to kind of play devil's advocate there a little bit and say my goal was to make sure that this vote tied. And on the revote, like, I was never going to vote you out. So I just needed you to trust me there and to get the information that we needed to get from the other side during the live tribal and the horror and hell that surrounded being locked in on tribal council for 24 hours. So that was that's the kind of angle that I played with that. Just to try to keep Frost on my side and not have him be angry that, you know, it did become a tie vote between the two. So in the other alliance, I don't know what crazy names, I don't remember the crazy names that you guys came up with. The botched Brazilian butt left.
Yeah.
I think it was in that one where I had suggested Frost for the Tanner vote. And then it kind of shifted to Mina because Mina didn't win immunity at that point in time. And then from there, somehow it got off of Mina and onto Tanner. And then Tanner was the one that ended up going for that vote, which was the one time the entire game that I didn't want to vote for Tanner. And the one time that I had no other option to do so at that point in time. So from that, I mean, and then it just goes downhill from there because, you know, it was the next one to go. Just because I had targeted, you know, Mariano twice and voted out Toxic, so I really had the odds stacked against me at that point. So I was trying to stay as quiet on that revote because I knew in these games, like, you just kind of know when your time's coming because individuals just start acting differently. Which is one thing that's the strangest thing. Like, people just get really quiet and they start speaking differently, and I think people think that they're really sly about that, but it's
always the same.
Like, I don't know, like, it's just it's predictable, I guess. So I knew that
you all day long, and then you'll be like, so I know I'm the vote, and they're like, what do you mean you're the vote? And it's okay.
I would never do that. 100%. So going into that, like, I knew that the tribal chats for the revo was quiet, and I knew that with Mina addressing with Naran, that I had mentioned something about Naran and Barney never receiving votes. I knew that wasn't looking good for me because it was true. I did tell Mina that, like, and if Mina would have said, yeah, like, let's make something different kind of happen here, I would have 100% voted for Naran or Barney at that vote. I was more so trying to target Naran, just because of kind of the dynamics that, you know, and I did post edited information that Naran had sent, trying to help. And that was like the start of when I started to share some of those conversations that I was having to try to...
edited it? Like, you faked it?
No. It was the real conversation. I just took like the timestamps out and those kinds of things. Yeah. So it was just a copied and pasted the text with, you know, the quotients or the quotations to kind of highlight some of those things. I think I did that with Mina and then Frost for, I want to say it was a conversation I had with Mariano, just to try to throw some doubt and cast some doubt and shade a little bit, I guess. But I knew that when Mina started talking about that and Naran mentioning that he didn't want to go to Rocks anyway, I knew that it was pretty much donezo at that point in time. So, cut to my final message to all of my fellow murder victims and my fellow castaways, if you will, students.
This lovely highlight of this season.
Yes. So, I portrayed this, social butterfly. I wasn't, I think Abe had a good read on my game. Like, I was definitely backstabby and flip-floppy and snaky, but I wasn't trying to be mean or aggressive about it. Like, I don't think that, given my age and those kinds of things, like, I don't think that those things are necessary, correct to do, for lack of better words at this point in time. But come to the final words, and then all ties are off. So that's the point where I don't have to, I feel like I don't have to keep anybody's secrets anymore. And, you, by you voting me out, like, I'll still respect you and I'll still have those conversations and, I'll consider your games and the moves that you've made. But I don't have to protect anything that you've told me at that point in time. And that's when I tried to use all of the information that I was given. And there was lots more, I'm sure. But I know I was doing some dog training at the point in time too. So I was trying to be concise because I had started it before Tribal Council even started, because I knew I was going to be the one, just to kind of be prepared for that. So I just exposed everything that I could think of that I thought would be detrimental to individuals. And I couldn't do that to Barney, obviously, because Barney, he was the one individual that didn't, vote against me at the revote. But also, like, I didn't think that there was anything that I saw that was really shady that Barney had done. So I didn't have a lot of dirt or information on Barney that I could have provided, even if I wanted to, in regards to that. Like, our conversations were always just really fluid, and we connected later in the game just because our time zones weren't super consistent at the beginning. But I was really trying to stir up some drama, and I knew that calling Neuron shady, I knew that was just going to get under his skin, and I was banking on him spiraling a little bit, and I think he did, but I think he handled it well, with all things considered.
Yeah, all things with his reputation, and I say that with love.
Yes,
I adore Neuron. So
yeah. Yeah, so I think he handled it well, and Mina was like, "Well, you guys got all the tea and didn't have anything left for me." Like, my in going into that and having picked Mina first to be on Monokuma, I didn't have any ill intent towards Mina, even though she had voted for me at that point in time 4 times. Well, no, it's probably more than that, because she had a couple double votes in there too. So I didn't have any ill intent. I was really trying to help Mina in that regards. But
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I don't mean to keep cutting you off. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm talking a lot, so
and I love it. I love it. I'm getting such a thorough understanding. I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe Mina only got the double vote once, maybe twice, but I believe it was only once.
Was it the one time? That was for, well, yeah. Somebody didn't give it to her, because I thought Toxic. I said she had voted twice for Toxic too, but I could have been wrong on that.
Someone handed her the double vote.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
During the Toxic vote, I believe it was Frost. Frost had the double vote and then gave it to Mina, because Frost knew that he was getting votes.
That's right. You're right. Yeah. Yes. So, but the let's see, it was at the A vote that I had gotten votes, at the Tanner vote, and then again, I think at the was it the Skylar vote that I got votes too?
You would have to check the voting chart.
And it's I'm just speculating. I know there was a lot of votes that were cast against me this season.
I think you might have had you or Toxic had the most. Yeah,
that checks out. So I knew that even outside of that, and I even joked with her, with Mina a little bit, and I was like, let's do this, but promise me you won't vote for me again. Like, I was being a little shady about it, but it was playful shady, like not like, I know what you're doing, I see you, kind of thing. But I was still trying to help Mina, like, because if I think, given Mina and her competition strength that she had, like she won what, 3 immunity challenges, I think. Um, Given her prowess and challenge strength, and the way she was able to navigate having flipped to the other side and surviving week after week, I think that said a lot of information about both her strategic game and being able to flip when she did, as well as her challenge strength and her her social skills, to be able to navigate that and survive for that long. So had Mina gotten there, and I think that everybody knew that, I think Mina would have won hands down against anybody that would have been there. But yes, I digress. And then I know that there could be some circulation in regards to Mariano. So my relationship with Mariano started right at the 3 split, and Mariano and I got really close in regards to just things that we were talking about, both game wise and personally. And my intentions in saying what I said about Mariano was not in regards to any kind of reference to what he had going on in his personal life. I just wanted him to be aware that, for me personally, I couldn't vote for somebody that was only showing up to tribal councils and putting the effort in at that point in time. But again, my perception of that was one sided, right? Because I don't have the information that he's in the hot babes and having all these other conversations. Just the impression that I got was that he was only showing up for tribal councils and putting the work in that way. Not all the time, but towards the last couple of votes, maybe last 3 votes, that was kind of my perception of the situation. But yeah, I mean,
I would like to, just since you did bring it up, I would like to read some of the final words aloud, specifically the ones that you said to Mariano. I won't read all of them since there's a lot, but
sure.
So what you said to Mariano, you said, one of us was bound to get the other one at some point. Am I mad? 100%, especially after your words to me were to prove loyalty. Shh, that means nothing to me now. You played a good game, but you will not be receiving my vote to win. Any other person could be sitting next to you and they will receive my vote over you, regardless of who it is. I find it ironic that someone that can only make an effort at tribal councils has lasted as long as you have. Perhaps you are the shield. So I just had to throw that out there since you did bring it up.
You say it with such disdain.
I have to throw some theatrics in there, we are LGBT. Like,
it's true. And to speak on the loyalty aspects, so that part came from the vote previous, right? Because when Mariano's back was against the wall, and he's like, well, you all lose, yada yada yada. I need you to show me loyalty tonight, yada yada yada. In which I did, so I flipped and used my double vote on Tanner instead of Mariano for that vote. That's who it was. It was Mariano, for the one side, and then Mina for the other, and then it switched to Tanner. But so having done that, and him saying that, well, I need you to show me loyalty again. Like, first of all, like Mariano's approach to the game. Like I mentioned, like our game, my perception was our game styles were similar, from my perspective, in terms of, we were competing to be in that spot, because there was only room for one of us, and we both knew that, I think. And kind of going through that a little bit, and having his way of communicating in DMs was very direct, and it was very, I say dictatorial lightly, because I don't want it to seem like it was, crazy. I know I did make reference to it in my confessionals a couple times of not being appreciated, being spoken to like that. But it was very like, this is what we're going to do. Like, there was no discussion about it. It was like, this is what needs to happen. So I didn't necessarily appreciate how that necessarily came across. So the loyalty comment was in regards to, some of that, and just kind of how that kind of played out a little bit. And anybody could have been sitting next to you. I won't vote for you. That was more to rouse him to play a little bit harder, right? Because that's what I wanted to see. Like I wanted to know what I knew the moves that he had made because I had been part of some of those and the blood that he had caused, but I wanted to see more, and I wanted to see what else he was capable of. Was he going to turn on Iran and Barney? Because if he would have, that would have 100% gotten my respects for that. But alas, here we are.
All right. So while you were speaking, I was very actively listening. That you are such a great speaker. Like you're just wonderful at speaking. I could listen to you talk all day.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I did write down about 10 questions.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could totally talk forever, so feel free to tell me to shut the fuck up.
Oh no, you're good.
Here's one that I did not write down, actually.
Okay.
You voted for, remind me who you voted for to win. I'm sorry.
Barney.
Barney, okay. Can you explain what went into that vote and just your overall experience at Final Tribal Council?
Yeah, so my decision to vote for Barney, came down to who I thought had played the best game out of the three of them. I know Barney had at least one competition win that I remember. I think he had two because he won one of the last ones, I believe, as well.
I think so.
He had the wins under his belt. He was able to socially navigate. He was able to stick to what his beliefs were. Like, for the example, the revote for me, like he didn't sway and he could have, which showed loyalty to that, and he was able to survive that as a result as well. And then just the way he was able to navigate some of the things that he did. And I wouldn't the photos that he was sent, like those were just freaking hilarious. Like that wasn't a reason I voted for him, but like he literally had a photo for everything. Like, oh, here's a photo of me with a map. Like, who has that? So that was what one of the reasons that I decided to vote for Barney. I thought, and one of the things that Naran needed to work on was winning challenges and making moves that he could stand behind. And I don't think that he had that opportunity to do that, at least from, if he did, and it sounds like he was responsible for a lot of those things, he wasn't as vocal about it as some of the other individuals were. So he wasn't able to really highlight that until people were kind of grilling him at the end. And I think in a lot of situations, individuals kind of have at least a sense of where they're kind of going. So you have to be really persuasive in order to, change somebody's mind and how they're going to vote at the end.
Can I just say, before I forget this thought, it is so fascinating that you say that. Because now this might be because Naran was updating his confessionals more than anyone else. But sure. Naran was absolutely the storyteller, the narrator of the season. And again, maybe that's why. But from a spectator perspective, Naran was in charge of Hot Babes. Naran was running Monokuma.
Yeah.
So, and he was, he seemed very vocal about it. So it's just so fascinating to hear you say that he just, and even in your final words saying that he rode coattails and everything. And it's just so interesting because everyone from an outsider perspective, if you look at power rankings, and this isn't me trying to defend his game or anything. I'm
sure.
Stating power rankings, he oh my God, I'm talking so fast. I'm so excited. He was at the top of them for, and then we get to merge, but yeah, it's just so interesting how the difference is from watching outside the game and then being inside the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that because Naran he was really good socially and he was able to make those connections that he needed to make. But he wasn't, from being inside the game, he just wasn't able to highlight or I don't know if it was that or if he just wasn't confident or if he was trying to downplay so he wasn't targeted.
Oh, he was confident, let me tell you. That shit bordered arrogance. I mean that lovingly. I mean that in an admirable way.
Yeah, So like I don't know, it must have just been like he was trying to downplay that a little bit so he wasn't targeted. And I think that he could have, boistered that a little bit more, to highlight that throughout the game of what he was able to accomplish. I again, like my one of my my strategy is to try to ride the middle as much as I can. And this season, unfortunately, I had to flip back and forth, and not gonna lie, it was a lot of fun to do. But like, you have to, and that was one of the things that, had I made it to final tribal, like, that was going to highlight, like, yes, I was able to navigate both sides of this, and I could have been lying to somebody's face and saying, yeah, everything is fine, and then send them out the door, and have that kind of go both ways. I knew at some point in time my luck was going to run out with that, but I was hoping I was going to get to the end, because that was the only thing I had left kind of going. And I think I had made one comment at one point in time, like, if I lie again, like, I'm a dead man, like, nobody's gonna believe me again. And then I ended up having to lie again, so there was that. But kind of going back to Neuron, like, just being able to have that willingness to share, because he was outshined, in my opinion, by individuals like Mariano was very vocal about what he wanted to do. And then towards the end, even Barney was starting to call the shots in terms of, like, the Tanner vote. Whereas Neuron never really, at least from what I was seeing, he was always somebody that kind of agreed or followed onto those votes, versus making a decision, at least in the alliance chats that I was a part of. And then as far as Tristan was concerned, I fully appreciate the underdog story, and being the last of Sami to be standing is fantastic, and having the odds stacked against you. I just didn't see how I didn't see that he played, in my personal opinion, even though I do like Tristan a lot, and had a good connection and conversations with him. I didn't see a strong game from him, even though he was the last of Sami. So there was a slim chance going into it that I would have voted for Tristan, just based off of that. I know, again, he mentioned that he didn't have the opportunity because, there was this snowball effect of Usami going out and doing those things. But there could have been opportunities that he could have taken, that I think could have potentially better set him up, such as winning competitions here or there. And I think he did win the last one, which was good. Like, that was a good move there. But I think I wanted to see more from Tristan's game, from a juror standpoint.
Got it. That was super thorough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Edit. So I guess now this is the first time, this is such a good interview. Like, I actually wrote notes. That's insane. I normally just bullshit this, but I took it seriously. So I guess I'll just go down my little list. And at the end, we'll take audience questions if anyone has any, which will be really interesting because the two people listening right now, we're both in this game. And
right?
Yeah. So first of all, you have mentioned a couple of times that you were the oldest person in the game, and I feel like you probably are. Wow, this is going to come out so wrong, but I feel like you probably are like the oldest person on a lot of casts. Not that you're old. You're not old. You are not. But the org community tends to skew quite young. So.
Absolutely, yeah, and I have been. So there was a game that I had played where it was a cast of 20, and we were divided up into 4 different tribes. And I was the oldest at that time. I think I was 33 because I just turned 34. Or I might have been 32, but I was on a cast of 16, 17, a 20, and a 22-year-old, and 100%. That was one of the, it had a similar following, such as Viver, where there were all over 1,000 individuals that had joined the server. So having been cast and having that casting process be so vigorous, and then being the first boot for that org was just heart-wrenching.
Was it Dollar Viver?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the age thing is definitely something that's and if I were if I wanted to lie about it, I totally could, because I think I could blend it as a 24, 25-year-old, since, people thought that, at least Barney thought that I was 24 or 25 and he was the old guy. So I think I could make that blend, but, I don't want to accidentally slip up and lie about it either, and then have that be an issue too. So I think that honesty for that aspect is probably the best policy. But with that too, like, in the games that I've played in the past, I have played with some individuals that have been older. I played with a guy that was about 44 in the first org that I played in Secret Survivor. And then just kind of being able to navigate that and finding, like I mentioned, finding the connections and finding where you can build those bonds is what has really done well. That's what I've kind of thrived in trying to work through that. And typically, with the exception of, I think, 2 orgs out of maybe 25 that I've played at this point, like I've typically made it to merge in almost all of them. So I think I've successfully mastered that. Now I'm giving away my secrets, and everybody's gonna be like, ha ha ha.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
On that same line, I have 2 questions. I have one that's like more about the game, and then one that's a little more serious.
Sure.
So I'll ask both of them, and then you answer them as you'd like. So the first one is, how did your age factor into this game, if at all? Which you've kind of touched on a little bit. And then the second one, and this is going to get a little dark, but oh my God, I'm so sorry. 1 second. I got Instacart and they're asking me a question. That's so embarrassing.
At least we know you're making dinner tonight, right?
Right, maybe. We'll see. If it's going to load.
Gotta use that. Is it carrot? It's not carrot cash. That's a hopper.
Sorry. Okay, so
no, you're good.
The second question is, what's really interesting is we've had a few older women play. I've met quite a few older women. I don't meet as many older men. And I feel like older players get grouped and stereotyped. And for older women, they're seen as the motherly type, and that's their role, which, sucks, but it's not as bad as the stereotype for older men. And maybe I'm just reaching. But sorry. Oh gosh, let me type.
No, you're good. And I'll try to answer your first question then as you're kind of typing there. And then we can kind of circle back to the second question here. So yeah, so I did think that the podcast reveal at my age might have had some kind of impact. And for a while, I was going in any kind of new server that I joined and was asking, what the typical age range was, because one, it's just kind of awkward to play with a set of all minors, and I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
So, going into talking to the host and say, hey, like, I don't need to know like specifics of anything, but typically what's the age range that you cast? And if it's like, well, we typically cast on the younger side of 15 to 19 or 20 or something like that, then I might not necessarily participate in those kinds of games if the majority of them are on the younger side. But I think that says a lot too, just out of respect for the game too, because I don't want to be seen as somebody that is in a confessional. I don't necessarily think it's appropriate to badmouth individuals that are younger and some of those things, as spectators like to see. I don't know necessarily think it's appropriate either. So I try to be respectful and mindful of that also. And then, yeah, I mean, trying to find a niche in a cast, I think, is important, especially when you're older, because you can very easily be, as I've seen, a first boot in situations like that. So finding ways to connect early is imperative to survival in an online org. So yeah, and sorry, I don't know if you're kind of can elaborate a little bit more on your second question there.
Yeah. Sorry. Wow, this store, people went crazy and cleared out all the pasta.
Oh my gosh.
But okay, so what I was getting at is I'm so sorry. I promise I'm trying to type as fast as I can. This is
Oh
so
no, you're fine.
inconvenient.
I mean, I think that the start of your question was you're seeing more older or females play or older women play versus men, and men kind of get more stereotyped in age because they're not necessarily seen as a mother figure as females are in a game as this, where it can be more perceived as a different kind of dynamic for an older guy to kind of play.
Yeah. So where I was heading with that is actually, it's really negative, actually. I feel like older cis men, like if I'm still playing orgs at like in my 30s, like I feel like I'm not gonna have that same issue because I'm like trans and people don't think I'm a real man. But like I feel like you have to walk, and maybe it's different because you're gay. I don't know. Like I feel like it would be a lot different for like straight men, but you have to like walk on this very thin line, and you get stereotyped as like a pervert. I don't know. Like I don't know how to explain exactly what I'm saying, but like it's not weird for an older female to talk to a young like 15-year-old girl, but it is weird for like a 35-year-old dude to be talking to a 15-year-old girl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that is some of the things that I consider as well. I know Sophie was on the younger side here as well, and I definitely filter myself when I'm speaking to individuals that I know are not 18, because I don't want it to ever come across as inappropriate or anything like that. So I definitely filter what I'm saying and how I'm speaking. One of my rules of thumb, and somebody I was playing with one individual in an org that I think Nay played in. I think she was in your last season.
Yes.
In an alliance, and I had an individual. She was 17, I believe, and she thought it was weird that I wouldn't like swear around her, like in our DMs and in our chats. I'm like, it's nothing personal against you. Like you feel free to speak how you would speak, but coming from me, like I just don't feel comfortable doing that. She thought that was the strangest thing. I'm like, you think it's strange. I'm just trying to be respectful. Like,
Right.
so I definitely see that as a thing. I started playing. My first org was 2 years ago. I started right at the start of the pandemic in December of 2019, which I guess, yeah, we're going on 3 years now, right? So this was a brand new experience for me, and I didn't know what to expect. Kind of going into it the first time, and I had a really pleasant experience, and I've had some not so great experiences since then as well. So it's finding the right community, and when you do that, I find that you try a little bit harder to kind of go a little bit farther as well, especially considering the age gap in some situations, in some cases. I thought that at least for this cast, like there was a nice diverse group of individuals. There were some individuals that were on the younger side. Frost and Lucy and Sophie, and I think Quinn was on the younger side as well.
Yeah, Quinn recently turned 16.
Okay. So and it's finding the right balance of not making them feel alienated, that you're trying to engage with them, but I typically don't spend a lot of my time talking to those individuals, but I don't necessarily exclude them either. And for individuals that do identify in the LGBTQIA community and plus, I try to, especially individuals that are a little bit younger, like I try to when I can draw from my own experiences of some of the things that individuals might be going through. I know that we had a nice little chat in the conversation with Naran and Barney. Things are, in regards to that, things are different nowadays than they were when I was growing up. And one of the things that I shared with, I want to say it was Naran and kind of DMs was, my experience. I never came out to my parents. My parents found out in a diary that I had kept. And their initial thing was to send me to live with a pastor, and I didn't necessarily agree with that. So I kind of took the liberty to, at the age of 16, I decided to move out of my parents' house and kind of start, living on my own at that point in time. With family, just family that were more accepting of, being, gay. So I try to have sympathy, not sympathy. I try to relate to those experiences with individuals because I know it can be challenging, and I know, bullying is still a thing in today's society, and it's unfortunate. I wish that it wasn't. I know we, as a gay community, as a community, as a whole, not just in the gay community, but our community that we represent. I know suicide is a prevalent thing, and it's unfortunate that happens. So I try to be as relatable and be, as much as you can in an org, a role model in that regards, because I know what that can feel like at times. So sorry to go all deep and twisty on you.
No, I love that. I love whenever we get into conversations like that on here. It's really meaningful. And that conversation between you, Naran, and Barney was one that was very impactful and really, fun doesn't feel like the right word, but very nice to watch unfold.
Sure.
It just had a lot of meaning. And it's like, yeah, like we're all just playing these silly little games online, but like they are impactful and we do have impact on people. And I think that that's really important to remember and something that a lot of people do forget sometimes. So it's amazing that you're actively seeking out positive influence, which is something that we don't see all the time.
For sure. I mean, in the world that we live in today, like, we're surrounded by negativity all the time, and it can be just completely overwhelming. I hate to tell you, it doesn't get better as an adult.
Yeah, trust me.
Right. So just being able to have that escape and using those opportunities to, learn from one another and forget about the stressors that surround the day to day. I think those are important, and I don't claim to have the answers for everything, but if I can, say something that has some kind of impact on somebody, preferably positive impact, that makes the situation even better. So
I love that, and that actually leads into my next question, kind of. So you were okay. Let me lead by saying that we had some big personalities. Clearly, there were fights in tribal, there were fights in tribe chats, there was Naran fighting, there was Skylar fighting, there was Abe fighting. Everyone was just blowing up all the time, which was very fun to watch. And I love how it all stayed game related, which was beautiful. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is you were one of the only people who, even in your confessionals, from what I remember, managed to keep your cool. How the fuck did you do that? How did you do that?
I mean, you at the end of the day, like, I don't know any of these people, and it doesn't do any good to get irritated. Or, I mean, there's obviously irritation, and I express some of that in my confessionals, but at the end of the day, like, I don't have to like see these people. So it kind of comes down to like people are going to make their own decisions. And as long as it's not like some kind of personal attack on somebody's character, by all means, like have your drama. I know it makes for a good season. It's just and I can say that I've participated in some of these some drama things in the past, but it just my experience is that it usually creates more chaos than it's worth, at least for me. So trying not to lose your temper or lose your cool in those situations, I think is better for me for me because it kind of goes along with my mentality of not not taking things too seriously. I think that I try to find the comedy in things, even when it's not maybe necessarily awesome. I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't watch all of these things unfold and was kind of giggling and smirking behind the scenes.
You weren't the only one.
Yeah, like it's fun to watch, and as a spectator and as somebody that watches those things happen, like it's a good experience and it's funny and you know it's yeah. It doesn't for me though. It's just not the approach that I take. Like I try to stay pretty level headed, and make decisions that are more strategy based than emotional based. Not to say that it doesn't always happen, because I mean obviously you saw I was fighting Tanner for calling me old, but it was more of a fun rivalry than anything. Like I said, like I don't have anything against Tanner for that.
Of course. Yeah, it was just something very admirable that we saw throughout the season, because I don't know if you vanity searched your name, but like what would happen whenever all of this was going down, and sometimes people would a lot of times people would mention you because you were the flip-flopper, and you would just not be saying a word, and in the spec lounge, like we would just be like, Matty is doing very well. Matty is playing very smart by just staying out of it. So it's just, yeah, I just wanted to applaud you on that. That was great.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that. And part of that, like when individuals were like calling my name and stuff, like in those situations, like I knew that I had to be careful what I would say, because if I said the wrong thing, I would show my cards. So my best strategy and my best approach there was to try to lay under the radar as those things were kind of going on, even in support and not trying to start the drama. Like even by saying the wrong thing, like you can get pulled into it, and it just kind of blows up your game from there.
Right. So moving on from that, for some reason in orgs, the jury house Ponderosa tends to be a fucking whirlwind. By the way, if my cursing is like too much, let me know, because
Oh no, you're fine.
I'm a sailor. But it's so much. And for some reason in Villainviver especially so, I think it's just the stress of a big org, but like people get really intense, and this season was no exception. Ponderosa got really heated at times. So I would just like to hear what jury was like from your perspective.
So, I mean, honestly, my experience in Ponderosa was not a negative one. I had some kind of explaining to do, and I tried to start off on the right foot by, one of the first things I said was to Jake, and it was, "I'm sorry, Jake, like that was not my intention, and I feel terrible about that, because I really did. Like, for him to go out on a cast of casualty for something that I told him that he wasn't a target for, and kind of seeing that unfold, like I felt terrible for that, because I mean I was lied to, and as a result I lied to him, so I took responsibility and ownership for that, but I didn't, it was not my intention to have him there. I know Skylar was a little bit more more bitter towards me. And honestly, like Skylar and I, like we didn't have a ton of conversation. And like I said, like I wanted to work with them, but the stars just didn't align. And the second that I was like all in to kind of work with them, it's when I found out that they had mentioned that I had the extra vote to my alliance, which kind of defeated the purpose. And I couldn't really flip at that point in time, because then I'd be a traitor and ostracized on both sides. So I don't know if Skylar and I have resolved anything. I know they were pretty just upset about things in general, but I know that it was for multiple reasons. I think most of it kind of stemmed from just the snowball and the steamroll that kind of happened. I don't know if it was necessarily personal, if I may say that. Just more so how the events played out. In Abe, even in the jury house, like Abe and I were able to kind of laugh and have some jokes. And I actually really appreciated the pleasant things that Abe had said about my game, because I honestly, like, from an outside perspective, kind of walking into the jury house, like, I didn't think that I had that kind of support in the jury house. And then to see Jake say, like, I thought Matty was going to win from the beginning. Like, that was kind of fun to see as well, because I didn't, well, I like to believe that was the truth. Obviously, you never know until you get to those, those situations. But, as I was kind of working to kind of highlight what some of my moves were, if I were to get to the final tribal council, one of the things that I was going to play on was my ability to flip back and forth and do some of those things. But also my prowess to win the first challenge and kind of set the tone for things, even though Kat was technically the first. Just trying to be able to highlight some of those things and also highlighting that I was on the right side of the vote each time. So those were some of the points that I was going to make. But seeing the positive feedback that I got there as well, and then even with Tanner, I know that I think he was being more smart about it. But with him giving me the fragment there, and then just some of the things that he had mentioned also, I didn't necessarily have a negative experience in Pondy, in comparison to some of the other games that I've played in the past. I had one where I was playing with some other gay guys, at the time, and one of the things that they had said that was like I was this huge, basically they called me a fag, and I just exploded at them. I'm like, and they were from, and I don't know what's acceptable in Britain, and I don't claim to know those kinds of things. But they were from Britain and England, and where it was more socially acceptable, I guess, in their culture. But I was like, in America, like that's not something that you say to somebody, and just kind of going off on that. And so I've had some very toxic Ponderosas, but this one, for me was pleasant, so I don't have any qualms.
Oh yeah, definitely. I do want to clarify. We've had toxic Ponderosa houses season 4, so this was like nothing. This was like a walk in the park compared to some past seasons, so I definitely don't want it to seem like that's what I was getting at.
Sure.
But thank you for sharing that experience. I'm so sorry that you went through that. It definitely, one thing about orgs is it opens you up to different cultures and makes you see things differently. But on the flip side of that, it also forces other people to see things from your culture and your point of view. So I don't know, that's just interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So leading into that, I do want to disclaim this next question by saying I'm not trying to rope you into any drama whatsoever. There is no drama. I just am asking this question because, sometimes we make mistakes as hosts, as an org, and unfortunately, as large as we are, those mistakes are quite public. I really believe in taking accountability and learning from mistakes. So, and as we said earlier, like, my perspective from outside is much different from a player's perspective inside. So there was discussion in Ponderosa quite a lot about how there was rigging and favoritism within the game. And I want to let you know I don't lean one way or the other, so feel free to speak your mind. Just, I guess, if you saw any of that, what your take is on it, if there's anything that we can do better for anything that you saw from the hosting perspective. I'd love feedback and critique.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't notice anything that I thought was, weird or out of line or anything like that. I think the most, at least the conversations that I had, was just some of the randomness of which, hello, it's random. The randomness of the Blackened and who kind of got that, and it kind of seemed to flip back and forth quite frequently in terms of being on Monokuma one time and then Usami the next, and then going right back to Monokuma and the Usami. But again, what's one of the things about it being random is that you don't know how that's going to fall.
Right.
So I mean, I don't think that anybody can, say that there was favoritism in regards to that, because I mean, honestly, I didn't pick up on it like that. So I didn't have any kind of issues with anything that kind of happened. I know, again, like I know that was the opinion of some individuals, but it's not something that I supported. In terms of siding with that kind of mentality. As I mentioned, I've done the hosting as well, and the decisions, like these games they take a lot of your time. They take a lot of your time and they take a lot of planning, and it's just being able to take as a castaway or as a housemate or whatever, being able to participate in those things and kind of going into it and thinking that the hosts are out to get you. I just don't agree with that mentality. Like, yeah. I guess I'll leave it at that. Like, I think that you guys did everything correctly.
All right. And I'm so sorry for putting you in any awkward position with that question.
Oh no, you're fine.
I definitely wasn't looking for like, oh my God, praise us, like tell us that we're great, like ego boost. Like I genuinely just wanted to know if there was anything that we could do better. So I appreciate your candidness. That sounded like a weird word. Anyway, back to a few game questions. I promise I won't keep you for that much longer.
You're fine.
But it's really interesting that you brought up the Blackened twist, because my next question is, what were your thoughts on all the twists? I'd say that there were 3 main ones, and one of them didn't get used. So a refresher, not only for you, but for those listening, we had the one world twist, where, for those unfamiliar, you are in tribes, but you can talk to everyone. And then there was the Blackened twist, which was you get faced with what was supposed to be a really difficult dilemma or task. And, pardon me, if you completed it, you would get an extra vote. And then there was also something that didn't get played out, which was the traitor. And the traitor was randomly assigned at the beginning of the game, and there was one for each tribe. And if they did not get voted out and come merge, they could force all the votes at a single tribal of their choice to be publicly revealed. So like it would say Matty voted for Tanner, for example. So
sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, I personally am not a huge fan of one world twist. So this was a challenge at the beginning for me, just because focusing on that many conversations at once. And trying to work full time and do those kinds of things, it's just challenging for me personally. So I definitely pick and chose after kind of initial conversations, like who I would spend a little bit more energy with, and then as tribes merged or as tribes switched, like I would switch my focus to more of that. So while I communicated with some individuals, for example, Abe, I talked with Abe pretty much all throughout the game. I didn't necessarily do that with everybody though. So when those kind of tribe lines kind of were redrawn and drawn. Those were the kind of individuals those are the individuals that I spoke with the most. So like I said, Win Worlds aren't necessarily my thing, but I don't know. I don't think it necessarily impacted my game, at least for this season. Since most of the individuals that were, in the top 10 here were individuals from my original tribe. I think that my downfall was just my own ignorance. The Black and Twist, I thought it was fun. I thought that there were some interesting things that kind of happened. The giving away immunity, that was freaking genius. I don't know if I would have been able to do that one. That's one of the things that I don't think I would have been able to do, especially kind of considering all things. But kudos to Frost though for being willing to risk the biscuit on that one, because that was pretty cool.
Can I actually interject and say there was one blackened task that nobody would accept, so we had to come up with a different one, and that task was that they had to admit that they voted for the person that they didn't vote for in the last tribal, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, and no one would do it. No one would do it.
I don't know. Depending on which tribal it was, I think that I could have navigated that one. I might have accepted it, just depending on who the individual was that, at which vote out it was.
I know, I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah. I think that you can kind of maneuver your way through most of the things. Like, for example, I lied my ass off when I had to create the alliance with, random people. I was like,
yours fucked your game.
Oh, yeah.
Yours
100%. 100%. But I had to approach that in a way that I could have buy-in with them, and it did work, except for with Tanner. So they all voted for Mariano for that, and I had to vote for Tanner because I heard that Tanner was voting me, so that I lost trust in the other ones for that. So had Tanner just freaking stuck to the plan, again, things would have been different. But
Tanner was our wild card.
he really was. But I thought it was fun and it was challenging, and I knew going into that test too that I had to come up with something good for creating this, alliance with all these individuals, having, individual conversations, and probably having them know, especially with them working with Frost, that I was working with the other people. So I had to come in with something strong to kind of get them to buy in, which is why I led with, targeting. I led the charge on Mariano for that. Which maybe was a little too strong, but at the same token, like I couldn't make it look like it was a blackened task either, and I don't know if individuals caught on to that. Anything that I saw, it doesn't look like they did.
No,
maybe in jury though.
Yeah, I don't think anyone did. I think people thought that because people people thought that you were so sketchy already that they just thought it was another one of your antics. They were like, this is just Matty being a flipper again. Like, Matty's just trying to play both sides again. Like, the reactions were hilarious. They were like, what the fuck is Matty doing? Like, does he really think this is going to work? And it was just hilarious. But yeah, I don't think it got on.
And that works. Like, I use that to my advantage, I guess, in that point in time. And then as far as the trader, like, I'm like, I don't know if you're able to. I would imagine since the game's over, but who were selected as the traders at the start?
Yeah, so it was Lucy and Skylar.
Lucy, I knew it. Mm-hmm. That was good. But one of the things that I had mentioned early on, I think it was at Merge. I don't know if it was towards the Abe vote or towards the. I think it might have been more towards the Skylar vote. I had mentioned just kind of something in casual conversation with Abe about. I think it was Abe about the trader, and then kind of alluding to the fact that it might be me. I should have played that narrative up a little bit more. Maybe not necessarily to A, but to the others. It might have bought me a little bit more advantage there towards the end. But I think it was a good concept. I wish it would have kind of gotten to play out a little bit, because I think that could have been especially impactful. Maybe not with individuals that were left. Maybe towards like the higher number, like I guess lower numbers. In this case, to kind of see where individuals were voting. But I think the premise behind it was good. But so yeah, I supported it. I thought the black and tests were fun though. It was a nice little added flair to everything that was going on.
I do have an additional question about the black and task. We fully expected you all to try and vote each other out, especially when people in the beginning were telling each other, hey, I am the blackened, and that never happened. Can you tell us why you all didn't want to? Is it because you just couldn't figure out who was the blackened, or was it strategy? I'm confused.
So towards the end, it was definitely strategy. Like the last vote the vote that I had for Tanner, I was afraid of revealing that I was the blackened, because at that point in time, I figured individuals had enough shards that, it would be an easy thing for them to boot me to get the extra shard in that regards. So that's why I tried to fabricate the lie with Neuron and say, like, you have to say that it's you, because I don't want the blood. Like, I don't want to go down for this for having that double vote. And then have everybody get the extra fragment. So I think towards the end it was more strategy in terms of blocking individuals from getting the shards and kind of controlling the idols a little bit. Towards the beginning, I mean, I don't know. Like, if I would have known who a blackened was, like, I thought, maybe Lucy was the blackened for the first vote, the one that he bombed in terms of the like the 16, 18 minutes I think that he took for the first one.
With the zeros,
like,
correct?
Yeah. Like, I was dead set on that. He was the blackened for that.
Lucy. We're laughing with you.
It's true. So I was clueless at the beginning as to who it could have been. I mean, knowing that Barney was the first one that threw the vote on me, like, I had no freaking idea that it was Barney. I was expecting it to be like Nina or Sophie, to be completely honest.
I don't think the first blackened was Barney.
Well, it might have been the second one.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say the first one was Mariano.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, didn't know that either. Like, I think it was just a little harder more harder to identify who it was pre-merge than it was post-merge.
To be honest, the tasks in the beginning were not hard. They were like, don't talk for 4 hours, so that's on us.
I mean, and then you lie about a cat, right?
I'm looking at you. Then hey, we did get some iconic moments like that, so
right.
So something that people probably don't know about you is that, and I'm totally going to expose you here, so get ready. You're about to get canceled. No, I'm kidding. So you applied for season 5 and did not make it on, but you were an alternate. And the way our alternate system works is we cast, I put in quotation marks, 4 alternates. And our alternates, except for returnee seasons, get an auto cast for the next 2 seasons that are not returnee seasons. So that meant that you were eligible to be an auto cast for season 6 or season 7, and you obviously chose to play season 6. Ew, not my voice breaking. But I don't know if you watched season 5, and if you didn't, that's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. But let me see what I wrote. How do you feel about having been an alternate, and would you have rather played season 5?
So, I mean, knowing how challenging it is to get into Villain Fiverr, I mentioned in my first application and interview, like, I heard good things about the server, but I also realized that it was hard to get in. So being cast as an alternate, that was great for me. Like, and having that option to come back for one of the 2 future seasons, was, it was a nice little added perk to that as well. So, and I think the original season that I applied for was Midsummer. I think your Instacart's here.
No, we're all good. We're all good.
Okay. So I think the season that I originally applied for was Midsummer, and just the concept of Midsummer was the first time I watched it. I was just enthralled by the psychological fuckery that was that movie. It was so good. So I thought it was the perfect theme for a server called Villain Survivor. So it had me excited to kind of participate with that. And being an alternate for that was fine, and it was great. And having the option to, like I said, to come back for one of the next 2 seasons was even better. Having not been cast the first time around. So I did look at when the casting call came out for season 5, which I think was Get Shrek'd. Or Shrek themes.
Yeah, it was called Get Shrek'd. Yeah, and also while I have the mic, I will extend the question of would you have rather played season 5, and also ask would you have rather played season 4. Go ahead with what you were saying.
Oh, sure. So for season 5, like, it might be an unpopular opinion, but Shrek is not one of my favorite movies. So like I wasn't as excited to play in season 5, and I knew that the autocast or the invitation was expiring for season 6, so I figured I would, I was even less familiar with Dragon Opa, so I had to kind of jump on that opportunity to play for season 6. But I'm glad I did, because I did have a lot of fun in season 6. But given the option between season 5 and season 4, I didn't realize that season 5 was going to be young versus old. So it's hard to say. Like, I think both would have had their perks. I think I would have probably liked to experience them in summer over the Shrek thing, though. Just because of the irony of that is the movie. I like to play games based off of the themes. So I think that would have been a unique kind of experience. But with that being said, though, like I also believe that everything happens for a reason. So being in season 6, there was a reason for that, and I got to meet some interesting and cool people. And I wish Murray. I wish my relationship with Mariano could kind of get a little bit better. I know that he's still a little upset about the words that I left. But again, like, I wasn't trying to attack his personal character there. It was just from a game perspective. But I have since messaged him, and it doesn't sound like he wants to have conversations, and that's perfectly fine. Again, I wasn't trying to be hurtful to him. It was just a kind of game thing. So, but that's the long answer to your short question.
So a couple things to address the Mariano thing. Of course, he's entitled to his feelings, and his feelings
Absolutely
are valid. I do want to validate you, though, and let you know that I am very sensitive and very strict when it comes to attacks in this org and the things that people say. So much so that we had to change our policy of being proactive to being reactive.
Oh yeah.
So, because I guess I'm a little too proactive in policing what people say, which is fine. But yeah, so I certainly, me being the fucking word police, did not see anything wrong with what you said. It definitely all seemed game to me. So I just don't want you to leave thinking that you it doesn't sound like you think that you're a bad person or anything, but like that you did anything like wrong on a personal level, which again, it doesn't seem like you think you did anything wrong on a personal level, but just to validate that.
Oh, sure.
And then as far as everything happens for a reason, I know a lot of season 4 people. The season 4 cast is the most active in this server. So, but they hear me say this all the time. So it's okay. It's not going to hurt their feelings. You did not miss out on anything. You did not miss out on anything. I don't care. I love the cast that's active here. They're lovely. But that season quite literally ruined our reputation that we are still building back. So,
oh no.
yeah. I think you. I'm much happier that you played on season 6. Season 5 was great too, but I don't know with the old versus young, if you would have liked that as much. And then just a message to everyone listening. I really like how, and I'm not trying to take your mic at all, but I really like how we do our alternate system, and I decided to do it this way, and kind of I don't like to put my foot down and be like, I'm the owner, we're doing it this way. But I do sometimes. And this was one of those things that I said that we're going to do it this way because I feel like it, first of all, engages the community and builds a community, but also it like gives people a chance and inspires hope. Because, we've had up to 136 applicants. Like, that's a lot. Like, it is a very competitive org. As you mentioned, but this is just to say, like, if you are worried about not getting in, like, apply anyway, because you could be an alternate, and being an alternate is not a bad gig. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to wait like 2 months, but in 2 months you're guaranteed a spot. So hey, like, do it, just go for it. Yeah, that's my soapbox.
Absolutely. And kind of, I mean, at least speaking from a scheduling standpoint for me, it kind of allowed me to find which kind of time would work better for me. Because I mean, I think at the time of Get Shrek'd, I was in an all-star cast for the Mole in a different series. So it just kind of works better this way, where I could commit fully to being 100% active and involved with the season. So I mean, despite the personal things that I had going on,
Right.
people going to funerals and those kinds of things, but outside of that, I try to still be present and available even through that. So,
Right. And I'm so sorry for your loss, by the way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
By the way, this is a little random, but I've been meaning to tell you this like since I met you, but I guess I can like officially say it now. Sophie, Sophie, not the Sophie from your season, but Sophie, redhead Sophie, fought so hard to have you cast on season 4, and is a big reason why you became an alternate. And I just have to say, like, I'm so glad that they did fight for you, because you were just like such a pleasure. And I'm not done with my questions. I'm almost done with my questions. But I did want to throw that in there and say Sophie fought for you so hard. So Sophie's lovely.
Yes, I had a really good, pleasant experience with Sophie in a different org, and we were allies, and then we were enemies, and then we were allies, and then we were enemies. So,
That's what they mentioned, and they said that you were one hell of a player, and damn, were they right.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a high regarded compliment.
All right. I have like 4 questions left. So what was your both least favorite moment of the season? As a negative, I don't like being negative, but just to throw it in there. And what was your favorite moment of the season?
Oh, so for me, and I know that individuals like it, and I would consider myself a creative person, just more on the musical side of things than on our graphic design. So my least favorite was probably creating the Mono Cub. Just for at the start of it, like, I had no idea what a Mono Cub was. So kind of going through that, and I had not watched the series at that point in time, so I'm like Googling what a Mono Cub is and kind of what the history of it is. So that, and then I know that there was some conversation about some things at the night before the challenge was due, but nothing that anybody sounded like super stoked about. So just trying to work through that and come up with an idea that individuals could get on board with, and that kind of had some flair. So the design challenge, I think for me was probably my least favorite. Even even though like I had a big her hand in kind of creating what we did submit, like, but it almost lost. Like, just like to point that out. So just goes to show you I'm not a graphic designer.
Which
as far as my
again?
So we had DJ Mono Club.
Oh, I loved that one. I loved that one.
Yeah, it was Sparkle. It reminded me of like Full House and Kimmy Gibbler.
Cute. That's dating yourself a little bit, but
I'm kidding. Fuller House. As far as my favorite moment, I mean the while I was nervous as hell to go into the bloodbath, it did make things interesting. I would have just liked it to have gone the way I wanted it to versus, an unplanned variable there. But I mean, I guess that's can be expected, and I, should have anticipated that as a possibility. But I had put trust in those individuals and didn't think that they would do that. But I mean, everybody plays their own game, so I had to kind of bounce back from that. But I mean, while it was also a low moment, it was also a fun moment. So I think that was probably, and it challenged me as a person in how I responded and reacted to that situation. So I think that would probably be my favorite. Sorry, Jake. I know you're listening. I'm so sorry again.
It was definitely a high moment, maybe the highest moment of your strategic game, I'd say. At least in my limited opinion,
Yeah.
That's what it definitely tested you.
It did. And, I could have, knowing how the outcome turned out, I could have made some different decisions and maybe put some individuals in there to weaken, the Hot Babes Alliance, but, not knowing that was a thing. And it's one of the gambles that you take for that. So being able to navigate through the challenge, I think, is what kind of helped define that game. And I know that would have been one of the things that I would have mentioned too at Final Tribal Council had I made it there.
Exactly. And like you said, like, you didn't know about the Hot Babes. And also Mariano, who was a key element in Hot Babes, was also blindsided by the move that Toxic, Frost, and Neuron made. Like, Mariano was pissed because it also made Mariano look bad. So, like, yeah, that was not on you at all, even though you did get the backlash, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So this is like the last kind of game question that I have. You gotta talk more about this Mariano and Matty feud. It was a highlight, I don't know, highlight, but like, it was a defining narrative of the season, and it came out of nowhere. It was just like, all of a sudden, you guys were targeting each other every fucking round, and I had no idea why. So what happened?
I mean, I think it was like the whole thing kind of came down to, I think it was keep your enemies close, or keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. Like I mentioned, I had a really great relationship with Mariano. Kind of at the pivotal point in time, I think, was when we split into 3 tribes. That was when we kind of really started talking and kind of getting to know each other. But I also knew at that point in time, just based on the way he communicated, that he was going to be somebody that I was going to have to watch out for. And I knew that he had influence. I just didn't know how much influence he had. So I knew it was going to be a situation of one of us were going to go after each, after one another at some point in time. In games that I've aligned with individuals like that in the past, I've always made the one move too late. And surprise, it didn't happen any differently this time. Even despite my best attempts to not have that happen. But he was just very social, and that was I mean, one of the reasons that he was dangerous was because of how social he was and how much information he was getting, both from Usami at the time with the information that I gave to Abe that got to Skylar that got to Mariano, but also with the information that I was telling Frost. Like all of that was coming directly from everything that I was saying was coming verbatim back to me from Mariano. So I knew that Mariano was going to be dangerous. And I knew that it was going to be a who pulled the trigger first kind of situation. And I was trying to make sure that it was me, but it ultimately ended up because of the I don't want to say inability to commit to voting Mariano out, but he just played a better social manipulation kind of game, at least for me, to make sure that he was safe, and he was the one that was ultimately able to pull the trigger on that.
Gotcha. Okay. That definitely clears some things up. That's so it was like it made no sense to me. Like, because to me, you guys were on different levels. Like, okay, I don't know how to say this without like coming off like rude, but like
you're good.
Mariano, like from a threat level perspective, was on a tier above you. So it's like, I don't know why he saw, well, maybe he saw you as such a threat because you did play what could have been a winning game. I mean, like, you would have had to sell it for sure because you pissed off a lot of people. But just the fact that you worked with the Usamis and it was a Usami jury, I mean, that definitely is a threat. And Mariano pissed off a lot of people just because after Toxic was gone, he was seen as, the head of the dragon. So actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, it does make a lot of sense. But yeah, so ignore it.
No,
I just said.
No, you're good. And I mean, and like I said, in my perspective, I thought that Mariano and I were playing a similar game, or at least I thought that Mariano might have been playing the game that I wanted to be playing at that point in time. So I knew for me, as far as a threat and strategic management, that I could have more influence on Naran or Naran and Barney if Mariano wasn't there. At least that was how I kind of interpreted the situation.
But then, of course, we know Barney was actually calling all the shots the whole time. So
that's true. Social puppet master.
Yeah, I didn't even like. I'm kind of like going off on my own little thing for 2 seconds, but like, I was consistent with reading confessionals up until about episode 5, and then I got too busy with work, and then around episode 12 or 13, I had to catch up on power rankings. So I went back and like read them all. And as I was reading them, I was like, Barney's been in charge of this entire fucking game. How is he not?
So true.
How has he not been a contender on the Edgic? Like, what the hell? Like, I was like so stunned because everyone, like, I was just like, I mean, I had been like keeping up with like spectator chat and like host chat and shit. And everyone was like, Barney's a goat. Barney's not playing. And like confessionals were like, Barney's like a goat. But like actually reading what was happening, I was like, no, Barney is, and I don't like under the radar games, but Barney was like the goat. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Anyway, this is your interview, not Barney like praise.
Oh no, but... no, but I mean you're right in that, because I mean one of the reasons, because I had made a final 3 deal, like Mariano and I kind of he had approached me about a final 2. I would have never upheld that. But the deal that I made with Naran and I would have upheld that one. But in that was early on, when that was kind of first addressed and approached to me, just because I did think that Barney was also the GOAT, and my only contender in that situation would have been Naran. But as I was learning more, I saw more of what Barney was offering and doing, and I knew that he was making decisions that were subtle, but I knew that he was making decisions that were making him stand out, which is why I sung his praises in jury. Like, I think one of the first, maybe when I don't know who was voted out after, when Frost was voted out, like one of the questions that was raised was like, highlight what Barney has actually done. And I kind of went to bat for it. And I'm like, he's actually like, he's playing a game that nobody's seeing, and he's going to show you all at the end of this what he's doing. And he did. And, I think that I'm proud that he was able to kind of highlight some of that and showcase that.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. This is just a funny moment of the season. I mean, there were a lot of funny moments, but this is just something funny that I don't know if you know, but do you remember whenever he was drunk?
I missed that. I know he was talking about it. I was like, I don't remember him being drunk at all.
Oh yeah, he was faking it.
Right. Yeah. I saw him say that, but I was like, I don't remember him being fake drunk or real drunk. Like, I just don't remember that conversation happening.
Yeah. And he would like frequently pretend to go to bed all the time. It's just hilarious. But anyway, 2 more questions for you from me. And then we'll take some from the audience, and if you have anything that you'd like to say, of course. So a relatively easy one, maybe, depending on the answer. Do you still talk to anyone from your season?
I have not reached out to anybody other than Mariano at this point in time, other than what the few kind of things that have been exchanged in the spec or the alumni chat or spec chats here and there. And honestly, it's just because I've been busy with work. But in all honesty, too, like in a lot of situations, there have been few people that I've stayed in contact with in the games that I've played. Not necessarily just due to not wanting to talk to anybody. I just know that a lot of times emotions can be high after games, so I just try to give individuals time to decompress from those situations and see if anybody is interested. And if they do reach out, like by all means, like I will talk to anybody that reaches out. I'm just usually not one to necessarily initiate that unless I feel like we need to work something out and kind of go from there, like as I did with Mariano. But I'm completely open to anybody that wants to chat. I just usually don't initiate conversations because I know not everybody likes to have conversations post game.
Gotcha. Okay. And I actually just thought about a question that's been swirling around in my head, and I just forgot to write down. So I'll ask that before I ask my final question, unless I'm talking too much. Because again, please tell me. This is just the best interview we've ever had on this podcast. No offense to everyone who's ever interviewed. So you are on the ballot for next season, correct?
I am.
Yes, that's what I thought. Sorry, there's just like, I'm about to spill information that I probably shouldn't spill, but there's like over 50 people on that ballot, so it's hard to remember. What makes you want to play again so soon after? And you don't have to answer the second question because, there might be people who, if you get on, you'll be playing with, and, you might not want to reveal strategy, but like, would you play differently? Just like, I don't know, I guess just like talk about returning.
Yeah, I mean, so I try to leave games like after they're done, like in the past. Like obviously everybody does the vanity search and it kind of sees what everybody says about them and kind of approach things, and just see how those conversations and what kind of support was out there. But to return as quickly, like I'm not currently, I don't have commitments for other games at this point in time, and I know that this one kind of starts in just a couple weeks, and I don't see those opportunities. So
You're kind of getting real body.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, just repeat what you just said.
Yeah, so I don't reach or I don't seek games out as much as I have done in the past. So I have the time to kind of commit to doing another season right away. And it's another good opportunity, and it's a good org that is organized, and 100% will sing the praises of your punctuality. Like, you don't even know how much I appreciate how punctual you guys were in revealing things and doing that kind of stuff. There was one game that I played, and literally it took I want to say it was the whole season was about 65 days, and it was just the worst experience. It was a long commitment. The actual server was fun, but the commitment was, not punctual and dragged on. But so I appreciate that in knowing that you guys are driving that, and there's no, delay in those kinds of things. So that's something that I look for in servers that I play in, because I am picky.
As you should be. A player of your caliber, you are allowed to be picky.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, like I definitely, appreciate the work that you guys put into it, and I can see that you guys are committed to providing a good experience. So that's why I would consider playing, another back-to-back kind of game. As far as my strategy, I think that you can say that you will go into a game playing it a certain way. And as my interview kind of revealed, like I had one mind of how I was going to do things, and that was kind of be to kind of do whatever it took to get to the end, which I did do a little bit. But as I mentioned in some of my confessionals and some of the things that I've kind of talked about today, based off of that first vote, I knew that I had to reconfigure how I was going to kind of go strategically, because the first vote didn't go how I wanted it to. And I realized early on that I didn't have the voice in this game, at least at that point in time, that I needed to, or that I wanted to have. So I had to adapt to my surroundings in that sense. So I think that my strategy, I don't know if I would have a strategy I kind of identified, because it would be a different group of people, individuals that have played in the server before, and just kind of learning how those individuals play, and kind of adapt my strategy on kind of my observations in regards to some of those things.
Gotcha. And then last question regarding that question. Give us your pitch, like anyone, I mean, like we get a decent amount of like listens to these podcasts. I know I'm not saying that they listen to these all the way through, but people do listen to these podcasts. We get like anywhere from like 14 to like 30-ish listens on YouTube. So like, why should people vote for you? And remember, people, you can vote 5 times per day. So vote. But yeah, again, why should people vote for you?
I mean, so everybody kind of saw a piece of my game. They saw one game that I've played, and they saw my commitment and my engagement with individuals. One thing that I do wish that the server had, but I realized that it can be challenging, in the pings and those kinds of things, was just in server DMs, because that kind of
sorry. I can't.
No, you're good. I know it can be challenging. It provides more insight into, because not everybody shares everything that happens in DMs, so it just provides more insight into players' games. But if you were able to see my DMs with individuals, like you'd see that there was a lot of game talk and a lot of strategy that was kind of going into that, and a lot of relationship building. So just based off of what I might have posted in a confessional, doesn't necessarily represent my entire game. You only got to see a snapshot of that, which is, I guess, accurate to how you would see it on television too, right? Like you only got to see the edit that I wanted to kind of share at that time. But I also know that I updated my confessional a lot more than I typically do, just because of that as well, with the DMs. So I mean, I can be catty. I can bring some of the drama, and bring different variety and flavor. I believe, Gabriel, you called it a millennial flair.
Yes.
In in terms of my humor. So I mean, vote for Pedro.
Love that. I feel like most people are not going to get that, but I got it, and I appreciate it. I'm basically a millennial, like 23 is close enough. So
Right?
I'm 90s baby.
Oh, yes.
All right. So my final question is, and this is a question that I ask to everyone who comes on to interview. You have played big orgs, or at least one other big org in the past, even if you got first boot. I'm just teasing. I've gotten first boot
It's
many
true. It's
times.
true.
So how is it, okay, let me do a little build up to this. For some reason, Villain Viver is so stressful. And I say this even though we have trained, like staff goes through crisis counseling training, and every player is assigned a mental health support person. Like no other org does that. Um, but despite this, it is such a stressful org, like stressful like I've never seen before. And it's just so competitive, and that's why. And people just like you have to be quite mentally fit to play this org, and that is like not something that I'm bragging about. Like it concerns me. It makes me a little worried. And I personally think it's because it's a big org. At the same time, I only play big orgs, and I've never had an experience like that, and I personally would never play Villain Viver. It scares me. So I don't know. My question is, how is playing a large org different from playing small orgs, and which do you prefer?
So, well, first of all, I want to comment on the healthcare or health professionals that you guys have, or the staff that you have. That I want to make sure that you guys know that, and that's what was a really cool and an interesting and thing that you guys provide here. So I wanted to make sure Matt, so that's appreciated. I know that I didn't necessarily utilize. I think mine was elk. I didn't utilize elk a ton, but knowing that that option was available, because as you mentioned, like these games can be stressful in any situation, be it a small org or a larger org. Just the relational dynamics. People can do things the wrong way, and easily become offended by something that could have been just playful in exchange. So I want to make sure that to commend you guys for offering that and that service available for people that are playing. So thank you for that.
Of course.
To answer your question, I think that it kind of comes from the title, right? Like Villain Viver, it means that you have to be a big player, and you're going to get a lot of strong personalities from Villain Viver, because I mean the narrative behind being a villain, like you're thinking of individuals like Russell
Oh
Hands,
God!
or
Please don't associate him with us.
I mean, I'm just like, that's like, you think the first villain that
Yeah.
you think of, and so, at least for me, like that's the person that you think of. So you think big names like that, or what's her? Was it Jerry from season 2 or
Season 2,
3?
yeah, and Heroes versus
So
Villains.
yeah, so you think of these individuals, and when you kind of correlate Villain Viver, right? So like I knew going into it, like I was going to have to be a personality like that, and kind of showcase some of that. But how to showcase that, I think that is where the variability kind of comes in, because you can be a sly villain and and be sneaky, and flip back and forth, or you can be an outright villain and call individuals out face to face. You can and do snaky moves and blindside left and right. So I think it has to do with the level of villain that you're willing to commit to an org that's called Villain Viver. um, in terms of, I think that some of it also has to do with the amount of individuals that you have in the org, and it's not a bad thing by any means, but I think that individuals just typically try harder when there are more spectators to kind of see some of that. I will say I'm going to call out all the specs, and I mean this friendly, but if I do end up playing again, I'm going to need some more love in my confessional, because the only dedicated person that I had was Mr. Mayo, was Deathly Mayo, and I'm slightly offended by that because I thought things were good. That's my disclaimer there. I'm kidding.
I do.
Please vote. Please vote for me.
Let me interrupt again. I know I just keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Bitch. Our specs, and this is not just to you, this is to everyone. Our specs are so interesting because they're silent. They don't interact. but they watch because they vote for fan favorite. And I know that they watch because people who are unknown in the community, like it's their first org or like their second or third, and people don't know who they are, they will win fan favorite. Or like these specs will like show up to talk about the season like a week later, and I have never seen these people before in my entire life, and they'll like give a full rundown of the entire season, and I'm like, where the fuck were you whenever these people were like crying in their confessionals? Like, so we do have specs, I just don't know where they are. And again, people listen to these podcasts. Like,
right?
I don't. They just do not like to react. Which, you know what? Y'all do your thing. Y'all do your thing.
It's true.
But
it's true. And I know in some, and in some orgs too. I know that you're not allowed to react. So I know, right? I think some of the concern is that individuals might give too much away or react on the wrong thing, might send signals of different things. But I know that you guys vet spectators pretty well here. At least trusted spectators and those kinds of things. So, and I appreciated the reactions that I got, because at least it made me feel like people were with what I was saying. But I know that not everybody's like that too. So, and in all honesty, like I was just giving a hard time. Like, it's not the end of the world.
I just like people like comment on it every season, so I feel like I just have to throw that disclaimer out to people, because I do feel like a lot of people apply here expecting that, and I just need people who are applying to know, like, you're not going to get a lot of love except from like hosts in your confessionals. Or if you're like having a mental breakdown and we ping support squad, and then you'll get a ton of heart reacts. Like, that's what's
right. Yeah, I mean, I think that just kind of with the size of the org, I think just individuals try to play a little bit harder. And I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't even look to see how many individuals were in the org until about halfway through. And I was like, holy shit, there are a lot of people here. But I mean, in that kind of way too, like I play each game that I play in a similar fashion. Not in terms of strategy and those kinds of things, but just with the commitment and those kinds of things. So to me, the size of the org doesn't necessarily matter. It's an added bonus when there are extra and more members kind of present. But I mean, it's all about the way that the game is designed, and to me, the more aesthetically pleasing as much as you can get with an online game, I think symbolizes more than some of those things. It's about the experience, and I think that Villain Viber did a nice job with the aesthetics and the experience of putting individuals in the classroom and providing the executions and those kinds of things that you guys did and kind of wrote. I thought those were all nice touches to kind of really place us in the setting of the game. So I don't know, like it could just be, I think it comes down to just the name Villain Viber.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that is all the questions that I personally have. Do you have a few minutes for any audience questions, if there are any?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there are a couple of audience members. So if anyone wants to hop on the call and say out loud your questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring you up. Or if you want to type them in like spectator chat, you can do that. I'll give it a couple of minutes.
Sure.
And this is the part where we sit in a little bit of awkward silence while we wait for questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to add or talk about?
I mean, I just want to, thank and recognize production for a great season. I appreciate all the hard work that you guys put into it, and like I said, like you guys have some unique things and unique twists and challenges, and provide some unique experience for individuals that participate. In a lot of situations that you guys don't get enough recognition for what you do. I mean, I know that the passion that you guys have for the game and for doing these kinds of things and for having a sense of community. It kind of goes unrecognized sometimes. So I just want to make sure to express my gratitude for what you guys have done and providing this opportunity for all of us to kind of participate in and share in the drama that was our lives for the last 39 days.
Well, that means so much. Like, I can't even express how much that means to hear. Like, seriously, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't look like anyone has anything to say, so I think that's a really wonderful place to leave it off. It has been such a wonderful evening speaking to you. Thank you for coming on and talking. You are welcome anytime, of course. Welcome to the Villainviver family officially. Good luck getting on to next season. I hope to see you, of course. And yeah, I think that's all I've got.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you all enjoyed this tech talk by Matty.
Yes, an intimate evening with Matty and Gabriel.
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, this has been another edition of the Villainviver podcast. With me has been. This is where you say your name.
Oh, Matty. Hey.
Yes, and Gabriel. So we will see you next time. Real quick, if you're listening to this before season 7 starts, applications close August. Wow, these are things that I should know. Applications close August 31st. It is fans versus favorites. I'm not allowed to tell you how many people are on the cast. I don't know why, but I'm not allowed. So just know that there's a number of people on the cast. And the season starts September 3rd. We hope to see you there. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.